In this movie, I'll introduce you to the Save for Web command, and I'll explain why it's so well suited to creating web graphics in Photoshop. I have opened two images from the 12 web folder. They both start with the words Deeks Techniques. One's numbered 021 and the other's numbered 060. Now, when you first open this file, you'll probably get a font warning telling you that the fonts that I used in this document are not loaded on your system. That's not going to adversely affect things at all, so just go ahead and click on the OK button. Now, I created both of these images for my website, Deek.com, to highlight my free weekly video series, which is produced by the folks here at Lynda.com, and it's called Deeks Techniques. Both images are very small. If you click on this item in the bottom left corner of the image window, you'll see that this image and the other one measure 590 pixels wide by 200 pixels tall. And it just so happens, because of the way my site is designed, that the widest I can go with any image is 590 pixels. So I've already sized the images in advance. The size of the file without layers is 345.7K in memory, and then with layers it's 548K. So it's a pretty darn small file. But anything over 100K is pretty darn big for web standards, which is why we want to save it to a compressed format. Now, this file features a continuous tone photograph in the background, so it makes sense to save it to the JPEG format. I could go up to the File menu and choose the Save As command, and then I would switch the format from Photoshop to JPEG. Photoshop automatically turns off the Layers checkbox because JPEG doesn't support layers, and it turns on the As a Copy checkbox to indicate that we'll be saving this image as a copy that's not linked to the file that's open on screen. That's all just fine and dandy. Here's where the problems occur. We've got this item, ICC Profile Adobe RGB 1998. Now, we'll be discussing profiles and color spaces in a future course, but for now know that Adobe RGB is the best general purpose working space for RGB images in Photoshop. However, it's not what you would call compatible with the web. If you were to post this image, whether you turn this checkbox on or off, it's very likely that the colors are going to look overly saturated. They may look too dark as well. As we'll see, we want to work with a color space called sRGB that's more representative of web graphics. Worse still is this thumbnail item. Notice that it's dimmed and turned on, and I can't turn it off. Now, you don't see it on the Mac, but you still see its effects in larger files. So basically, Photoshop is saving a thumbnail that might be 20 to 30K, and that's a thumbnail that the person viewing your website is never going to see, so you're increasing the size of the file without a purpose. You're also potentially throwing in a bunch of metadata with that file, which takes up room as well. So the standard Save As command is not the way to go. I'm going to cancel out of there. Instead, what we want is to go to the File menu and choose Save for Web, which you can also get by pressing Ctrl-Shift-Alt-S or Command-Shift-Option-S on the Mac. And that brings up a very large window, as you can see here, that allows you to come up with the ideal compression settings. Now, when you first open this dialog box, you may see the GIF format selected. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to JPEG, however. And notice that I have these 2-up and 4-up displays. 2-up is perfect for this horizontal image. So I'll go ahead and click on the 2-up item. And what we're seeing now is a comparison between the uncompressed image at top. Notice that it says original and that the image takes up 461K. And then down below, we see the JPEG version of the image. And it's only going to be about 48K. Also worth noting is this Convert to sRGB checkbox. You definitely want to leave that option turned on because it goes ahead and converts the color space from Adobe RGB, which, as I was telling you, is fundamentally incompatible with the web, to sRGB, which better represents how the web works, because sRGB is the way that most monitors are profiled right out of the factory. Also note that there is no thumbnail checkbox, and the Save for Web command does not save a thumbnail along with the image. It just saves the image data, and that's it. And at most, it's going to add on a little bit of metadata in the form of copyright and contact info, although you do have other metadata options as well. And if you don't want any metadata in there clogging up the works, then you can go ahead and set this option to none. So Save for Web gives you the opportunity to compare your original and compressed image. It allows you to convert the colors so they're compatible with the web. It doesn't save any extra thumbnail data. And you can pare your metadata down to an absolute minimum, meaning ultimately you get the smallest files possible.